Dale Cleeton, who is from the Edinburgh area, had one aspiration, and that was to become a millionaire. And in order to achieve that role, Dale had taken to selling Class A on a commercial scale. The 31-year-old, who was described in court as a crime boss and a kingpin, had been a driving force behind a major drug operation that, at the height of criminality, was making more than £100,000 a month. Dale Cleeton was no stranger to the police. After all, the crime boss had more than 20 previous convictions to his name and had served more than 8 prison sentences. Now, some people would call him institutionalised. Others would say that the Edinburgh drug dealer was an opportunist or a risk taker. When Dale Cleeton was 28 years old, he had been jailed for 45 months after police found 2 kilos of high purity Class A in a badly parked car that was blocking the road. Now, police had only been alerted to a Peugeot car that had been linked to Dale Cleeton after a member of the public had called 999 and complained that a car was blocking an entrance to Edinburgh Street. Described as a low-level incident, police arranged for the car to be removed for traffic reasons, and a search warrant was signed off. When police arrived on the scene, the driver's side door was opened and police began to search the Peugeot. Police then made their way to the back of the car, and when they opened the boot, they were stunned to find that 2 kilos of white with a purity of 79% had just been left in the boot. Now, the car was taken away, of course. Through an investigation, police managed to trace the car back to Dale Cleeton. Police had then raided a number of homes across the city, including Queen's Ferry and Dale's own flat in Sinclair Place. On February 7th of 2019, £15,000 worth of was recovered, and a further £40,000 worth of Class A white, along with £5,000 cash, was again recovered. Police then tracked down Dale Cleeton at the SSE Hydro, where he was arrested. Now, Dale Cleeton was not just a drug dealer or a kingpin, he was also an avid rugby fan, and he had been fined for hurling a tirade at the England rugby coach. At the time of the drug offence, Dale had been under surveillance, and he was spotted pulling up to a van and then climbing out the van with a box, putting that box in the boot of the Peugeot car. He was also described as being vigilant and cautious, looking around constantly. He then left the scene. However, Dale actually incriminated himself because after the car was seized and then removed from the scene, Dale had actually made phone calls trying to find out the location of where the Peugeot had been taken to. Now, when interviewed by police, Dale admitted that he had been selling drugs between 20th of March 2018 to February 14th of 2019. The judge, Lady Scott, explained that Dale's offending had gotten more serious as the years went by, and how the dealer would have been jailed for 5 years had he not pled guilty to the drug charges. On paper, Dale worked as a plasterer, and he believed that his occupation would see him slip through the nets via police. However, when Dale went to jail, this did not stop his offending because he got into even more serious drug dealing and implemented himself as a kingpin, launching a multi-million-pound drug empire while he was behind the doors of H&P Edinburgh. Now, bear in mind, Dale had already been jailed for 45 months after being found with 2 kilos of Class A, and the street value was said to have been anywhere in the region of £220,000 worth of white. So, while in jail, Dale Cleeton actually managed to get hold of 2 mobile phones and also a SIM card, and he used those devices in order to conduct business. While serving his time in H&P Edinburgh, police had conducted at least 2 cell spins after intel suggested that a mobile phone had been used on the wing. When Dale Cleeton's cell was searched on October 21st, 2021, and also the 25th of April of 2022, police found mobile phones on both dates. So in total, they found 2 mobile phones and also a SIM card. Now, the mobile phones had been opened and messages had been read. The true scope of Dale Cleeton's offending had then just been realised. The Edinburgh crime boss and kingpin had been in constant communication with 30-year-old Calvin Begbie, who police had described as Dale Cleeton's right-hand man and second in command. So, while Dale was away, behind the doors of a HMP cell, it was left to Calvin to source the Class A, purchase the Class A, and then sell it on to low-level dealers. Now, because Calvin could not make the decision without Dale's consent, Calvin would constantly send pictures to Dale's phone, and Dale would then have to agree to the purchase. Calvin was responsible for updating a tick sheet also, and updating Dale as to who had paid and who had not, and what was the time frame to get the money in. Now, Calvin was the owner of a landscaping and gardening business, but the money brought in was not enough. In the messages, Calvin had also discussed about the possibility of bringing in his uncle, 51-year-old Fraser Boyd, into the criminal organisation. Dale Cleeton had allowed Calvin's uncle to store Dre at his house for a modest wage of £150 per kilo, stored in the Edinburgh house. Ironically, these were uncovered on messages too. Now, Calvin and Dale also discussed the fact that the men were amassing a mammoth £186,000 per month based on selling a kilo of white for £31,000. They were raking it in. Now, police put plainclothes officers on Calvin and watched his movements from the moment he woke up to the moment he went to sleep, and he was stopped by police officers while driving on June 2nd, 2022. Now, Calvin initially attempted to avoid police, but of course, a pit maneuver quickly put an end to that. After Calvin was pulled over, he was taken out of the driver's seat of the car, placed in handcuffs, and then searched. Police found £2,980 in cash, a portion of Class A, and 2 mobile phones, which showed the same messages and chat logs that police had already seen on Dale Cleeton's mobile phone, which meant that these 2 mobile phones had been linked together. Once Calvin Bigby was arrested and then placed in custody, his home was then searched, and over half a dozen officers had taken to the home and turned it upside down. Drawers, bedding, floorboards, the back of headboards, the back of TV units was all pulled apart. Police eventually found £5,440 in cash, a money counting machine, and a high purity of Class A. 51-year-old Fraser Boyd was also arrested in conjunction with the criminal empire. Now, at Edinburgh Crown Court, 31-year-old Dale Cleeton, who was labelled as the driving force behind the Dre operation despite the fact that he was in jail at the time, and being a criminal boss, he was jailed for 7 years after pleading guilty to supply Class A. 30-year-old Calvin Bigby was jailed for 6 years for the same charge. 51-year-old Fraser Boyd was jailed for 3 years. And by this time, this was just routine for Dale Cleeton. Does the crime match the sentence? Let me know. Stay safe.